Right, we're live. Hi, this is Sarah Wilcox. We're on episode 4, Useful Strategies to Combat Disruption. And today I'm welcoming Daniel from checkout.com onto the call with me. So Daniel, I'll let you introduce yourself and the platform.
Sure. So, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me today, Sarah. Pleasure to be with you. I've even put on a shirt as well today. So, like, I've been working at Checkout now for 4 years. I've worn lots of different hats at Checkout. Used to work in the sales team. Now, focus on the partnerships team, where I'm really targeted towards helping the SI community and the agency community, as well as other tech partners there as well. I guess with Checkout.com, we're a unified payments platform. Operating the entire flow of payments. So Visa, MasterCard payments, Amex payments, all of the traditional card payments that you'd expect to see there, as well as lots of different alternative payment methods aggregated under one unified API on one platform.
Okay, so if I'm correct, if I sort of wanted to start trading online, or I'm already trading online, and I was looking for a solution that would allow me to offer lots of different types of payment ways for my customers to pay, then you would be a great start in that respect.
Yeah, so look, it's pretty easy to integrate alternative payment methods using checkout.com, and what we're seeing quite a lot at the moment with our merchants is the fact that they want to actually try and penetrate new markets, just to kind of spread their bets a little bit. If they are seeing a reduction actually in transaction rates in their traditional markets, in their core markets, then of course they can actually look to enter other markets by using the alternative payment methods actually used in those countries, right? So yeah, I'd say alternative payment methods, core functionality that we offer, but also it's worth noting as well that we do process and can settle over 20 different currencies. So if you are looking to enter into new markets, then there's quite a lot of work that we can actually do behind the scenes to save a merchant on their FX fees, let's say, for instance, through a consultative approach, I guess, in the process of working with a merchant.
Okay, that's really interesting. So we do have quite a few clients who are trading globally.
Mm-hmm.
Things that we've noticed, which is why we recommend your platform, is that different payment methods appeal to different people in different countries. So don't just assume that because people in the UK are really happy using credit card payments that everybody else across the world will be happy to shop in the same way. So could you sort of give some examples of, for example, if I'm a customer in the Netherlands, what would be my preferred sort of payment method?
Yeah, sure. So there's two different things I would say to look at when you're defining which kind of alternative payment methods you should actually use. On one side, you've got the demographics. So there's different demographic trends that come into play here, as well as different geographical trends as well, right, on the other side of the coin there. So with Ideal in the Netherlands, I definitely recommend that. Over 65% of the transactions in the Netherlands run through the Ideal platform. And essentially what that is a bank-to-bank transfer method. So the user will be taken off-site to enter in their banking credentials. The payment would be authenticated. The money would actually come to checkout.com first. We would receive the money from Ideal, and then we'd actually be able to settle that on over to the merchant. Other payment methods that are worth noting, we're particularly strong in the Middle East, North Africa region, so the MENA region. We actually have the ability to onboard any of the 6 GCC countries or business entities there, as well as European entities, American entities, APAC entities in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia, as well as anywhere within Europe. So you can do this through one contract, through one integration, and through one point of contact, through a customer service manager or customer success manager, actually at checkout.com. But just to kind of take it back into the payment methods, there's 6 different payment methods within the MENA region. So you've got Fowry in Egypt, as an example, the MADA network within Saudi Arabia. And then you've also got, German alternative payment methods specific to them. So you've got GiroPay and so forth. Germans typically are quite credit averse anyway, even before COVID-19. So they traditionally like to use bank-to-bank payment methods and not use, let's say a Visa or MasterCard credit card there as well.
Okay.
Apple Pay, Google Pay, really, really important, especially if you're targeting younger demographics. That being said, even, kind of older demographics now are starting to get onto Apple Pay and Google Pay and start to use it more. It's a really good alternative payment method just to speed up or reduce the friction actually in the buy-in process. And something that's really cool that we're integrating at the moment, actually, that should be live in a couple of months, is the ability to actually have an Apple Pay button actually on the product page itself. So instead of asking them to fill up a basket and then complete the transaction, for a pair of shoes, you can literally just say pay now, and the rest of the transaction is actually complete from that product page.
Okay, cool. That sounds really cool, actually. We've got quite a lot of merchants that would be very interested in that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've noticed during this whole lockdown is we've noticed that some merchants are doing extremely well, especially if they're selling food and homeware products and cooking instruments and gardening stuff.
Yep.
And then other merchants have seen a bit of a drop down in their sales, particularly if they're selling certain types of fashion, because obviously people aren't going out. So for those sorts of merchants, one of the things that we've been recommending is this is a good time for them to sort of take a look at, selling to different markets, not just within their own territory, but also outside of the UK. So what sort of trends have you seen, and how can the platform help in that respect?
It's a really interesting question. So I guess, just looking at the industries, it's obviously a very bad time or a very hard time for the travel and hospitality industry. You've seen with some of the merchants that we process for a 90% drop in demand for some of those goods. But then on the flip side, obviously pharmaceuticals is doing really well. PPE in particular, any merchants selling that. I mean, we've got one merchant, PWA Magento 2 merchant actually, that's actually seen a 400% increase in their traffic and a 10 times conversion actually. That's just because people aren't actually going on there just to browse. They're actually going on there with a purpose to buy. And having checkout.com integrated alongside a PWA really helps the speed of the transaction to actually go ahead there. So really there it's all about efficiency, but taking it back onto the industries. Fast fashion, it's a little bit of a weird one at the moment. We are starting to see some merchants adapt, their lines to more loungewear. I know I am wearing a shirt for you at the moment, but usually I would be my trackies. So I guess that's seeing a big increase at the moment. Cosmetics saw an initial increase, I think, as people started to do more Zoom conferences. They actually wanted to dress up for the Zoom conferences, but the long term or the medium term trend of that is a slight dip or a slight reduction there. Groceries again is a really interesting one. So I saw a couple of statistics come out on this recently. 13% of grocery shopping is expected to be online actually this year, and that's up from 9% in the previous year. So a massive shift over to grocery shopping. Now, in terms of helping merchants reach new locations, you need to have the correct alternative payment methods in play. There's no point in selling to Japan if you don't have JCB as a card schema activated. There's no point in selling to China if you don't have Alipay or kind of WeChat Pay actually integrated there as well. So this really, the relationship with the systems integrator or the agency actually really comes into play in helping, I guess, understand what markets are opening up. New Zealand have recently, started to slow their lockdown or to open up the economy again. So that might be a good example for certain industries to try and sell into. But then also having the correct processing and settlement currency, just so you're avoiding that nasty 2 or 3% FX fee in the conversion for the merchant as well. So there's lots of different things that you can do there.
Yeah, I think the main thing that we're sort of advising our merchants is that they need to sort of to become more, I think, flexible and think about things slightly differently. So whilst there are challenges to selling abroad, there are also massive opportunities, and there are software solutions like yours to help with these things. One of the sort of issues we have a lot is that merchants don't even understand what the potential transaction fees are going to be. And also they imagine that it's a huge amount of work because you have to sort of do some extra work every time you put a new payment method in. But actually, so there's quite a lot of educating that needs to take place, especially I think with those merchants who previously haven't sold online at all. So they're new to this game. I mean, we have some clients who've come on board very recently. In fact, we have a joint client in the Middle East now that will be going live shortly, who historically was selling just through supermarkets and restaurants, and obviously all the restaurants and hotels in Qatar just sort of had to close down overnight. So they're now looking at ways they can sort of go direct to consumer. So for those merchants, there's a whole education process that needs to take place, I think, and that's what we're finding. Whereas, you know, historically we've been dealing with retailers who have been doing a B2C e-commerce for quite some time. When you're dealing with wholesalers and trades companies, then it's a totally different ball game.
So if I was a merchant, Sarah, and I did want to expand into a new region, what would you recommend in terms of, let's say, advertising, targeting? What would you look to recommend to a merchant there to make sure that we're reaching the right audiences?
Yeah, I think it depends entirely on who their target market is, and obviously we can help them with that in terms of search marketing and email marketing and so on and so forth. But what we found is that different methods work better in different regions as well. So here, everybody is very used to email marketing and getting news and promotions and the latest product information via emails. But in the Middle East, for example, there's a lot more social media, and that seems to work a lot better. Whereas over here, it's sort of just taking off with people selling on Instagram and things like that. So it really depends. A bit like with payments, it depends on, you know, what your target market is and who your target customers are going to be. And then obviously you've just got to trial things. The great thing about e-commerce is you can actually measure the results of any campaign you do. So you know, if for example you do a particular marketing campaign, you can see exactly how many orders you get from that. But also you can measure things like whether putting a new payment method onto your checkout for that particular country has increased the number of orders you get or the average values. So it's actually quite easy to take a very focused approach and invest where you know you're getting a return, rather than, for example, putting up a billboard on the motorway somewhere and hoping that, you know, that makes people go and shop on your website. It's difficult to know what the result of that is going to be and measure it. So
I guess just kind of building on what you're saying there in terms of the targeting, adding alternative payment methods, you don't necessarily need to scale your existing core market. Or a UK retailer only selling to UK merchants at the moment, and you think adding a new alternative payment method, let's say for Germany, is going to confuse your customers, what you can actually do on the checkout page is filter it by the currency that the customer is actually wanting to pay in, right? So you don't necessarily need to have a page of, let's say, 10 to 12 different payment methods. You can actually define it by the currency itself and kind of limit what the merchant's actually looking at that way as well, what the merchant's customer is looking at as well.
Yes. No, that's kind of. Yeah, sorry, you first.
kind of building on the I guess other trends that we've seen as well, specifically in the MENA region. Cash on delivery used to be really important over there. Now, obviously, people want to use cash a lot less. So we are actually seeing an uptick in credit and debit card usage within the MENA region. And you know, there's lots of kind of new cool technologies that are coming out to help facilitate this. So something that's cool that's going to come out in the market pretty soon is the ability to turn an Android phone into a payment device. Now, if you think about that for use in let's say logistics in the Middle East market, you can actually accept contactless payment through a Samsung phone, let's say. just to avoid cash being actually given over to the delivery driver.
Yeah.
And then you can also look at, I guess if I was a merchant, I'd be looking at how I actually deliver goods as well at the moment. You know, do I work with a provider that takes a picture of the good as they've been delivered, to prevent any friendly fraud or any chargebacks in the future? And you mentioned as well, you know, I don't want to kind of throw a load of information at you, but you mentioned earlier, you know, retailers coming online for the first time, they might be very used to taking card payments in their store. Now, whenever you do that and you take a card payment in the store, you enter your PIN number, which authenticates the payment. Whereas in the card not present environment online, there is actually the chance of a potential chargeback. So working with a payment service provider who can offer a risk engine and access to a risk team to prevent friendly fraud, to actually authenticate those payments, is really important as well. That'd be my bit of it. So.
No, it's a very good point, actually, and it's not something that that a lot of people even realize is a potential issue, is that fraud management layer that needs to be in place. So am I correct in assuming that you can put different sort of parameters in place for fraud management subject to what it is you're actually selling? So, for example, if I'm selling, you know, Adidas trainers and I get an order for 15 of the same shoes, can that set off some kind of trigger in the platform that tells the merchant that that's unusual and should be checked out?
Absolutely, yeah. So what I'd recommend there is using a user-defined field and tagging up those, let's say, high-risk items with that user-defined field. And then whenever it hits the risk engine on our side, we will notice that. We will then either, depends on the rule that we've actually implemented with the merchant, decide to flag the payment for manual review, or we'll just straight out decline it. Okay. There's a lot of other things that we can do there as well. So if we see the same credit card, you know, come to the website too often, or the same shipping address, or even if there's let's say a shipping to billing mismatch, a shipping to billing mismatch doesn't necessarily mean that it is fraud. It could be somebody trying to buy a present for somebody. But if it's a weird country pair, and perhaps you're shipping out of a region where you might not be that comfortable or might not be that familiar with, you know, how logistics are actually handled on that side, then you can set that to a flag or to a decline transaction as well, or even process it through 3D Secure if you're not processing through 3D Secure there.
Okay, right. And just for those that don't know what 3D Secure is, can you give a sort of layman's definition?
Yeah, so in a lot of cases with 3D Secure, it basically shifts the liability in case of fraud from the merchant back over to the issuing bank, what we call the issuing bank. And the issuing bank is basically the financial institution that issues you as your customer your credit card. So that's why they're called the issuer. So what actually happens there is that the bank asks you to authenticate your identity, and then you enter in your password or your biometrics, you're saying that is me. And then the bank will actually take the liability in case of any future fraud on that transaction. Okay. Other fraud types, like I said, that are actually missed out through 3D Secure is goods undelivered. So if in your terms and conditions, you're offering services or goods and the customer feels that those haven't been supplied to them, and you actually haven't come up with a resolution with that customer, you know, by offering a refund or anything else, then the customer does have the ability to call up their issuing bank and ask for a chargeback on that particular transaction. So that's where it's really important as well to look at the response codes that the payment service provider checkout.com can actually supply over to the merchant. If you are seeing a lot of, you know, goods undelivered, it might be a good idea to have a look at your logistics supplier, or at least have a conversation with them for the evidence that they're actually supplying in that transaction as well.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, it looks like in the not too distant future, the government will start to lay out the plan for the easing of the lockdown. And we've had we've seen two types of merchant during this crisis, and there are those who just decided to furlough all of their staff and go into a holding pattern. Yeah. And then merchants who decided to revisit how they do business and so on. So if you are one of those merchants who's sort of been in a holding pattern because you haven't really had the choice to do anything else. What would be your advice coming out of this lockdown for those merchants in terms of where they should be focusing their time to get back to where they were as quickly as they possibly can?
I'd say communication with customers is absolutely key. It's managing expectations. If you are missing some staff, or if some staff are still furloughed and you can't quite ramp up the logistics or the warehouse operations to package the goods and send them out, over communicate with your customers. There's a really good blog post that we released a couple of weeks ago called Weather in the Storm, actually on this, and just making sure that they're aware that their goods might be shipped a little bit later than planned, just giving them regular text updates. I think Shipper HQ, can certainly help out with this. At least that's what I got from one of the other webinars there. And just communicate with them through any channels possible. Constantly monitor what kind of transactions are coming through. Are you seeing an increase in your average transaction value, a decrease? Certainly have a chat with your payment service provider. See if there's anything that they can do there to improve the cash flow. If you're waiting a week for the cash to be settled over to you, is there anything there that the payment service provider might be able to do to actually speed that up, so then you can actually pay your suppliers as well?
Yeah, and is that something that you guys can help with? Yeah,
so it's we can evaluate on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
We always look to try and improve the situation for a merchant as they are coming over to checkout.com. I mean, through the partner network as well, a lot of the work that I've been doing recently is, perhaps having conversations around a period of free processing for any new merchants coming over to the checkout.com platform. Again, all of that depends on the onboarding, of the merchant itself, and through a credit from the credit risk team, we look to get their feedback on that as well. But we'll always try and help out a merchant and look to improve their financial terms there, certainly.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that merchants don't actually know that platform providers and agencies can help with at this time. So I'm conscious of the time because we're almost at the end of our slot. So I just wanted to ask you more of a personal question, actually, which is how you have found this whole lockdown and how you've been coping with it, and the good things and the bad things. So
it's an interesting one, right? So I'm now officially a runner. I actually exercise more in lockdown now than I did before. A lot of my job is, taking people out for dinners and lunches and going to industry events. Yeah. Obviously, because we can't do that anymore, I'm not drinking anywhere near as much, which is probably a good thing as well. So overall, I'm a little bit more healthy. I'm certainly increasing the amount that I'm reading, so I'm more well read. A little bit. I've read 3 books so far, so not too bad. But yeah, it's just a little bit of self-improvement. I'm pretty adaptable, right? So I'll always kind of deal with what's in front of me. Nothing in life is ever ideal. And it kind of makes you, I guess, more grateful and more thankful for the things that you do have. So, those little creature comforts, a bit of a morning routine just to get your life in order for the day. Those things, we certainly value a lot more in this time. What about you?
Oh, where do I start? Well, I'm a single mother in lockdown with 2 children. I think that says it all.
and a great business to run as well.
Yeah. So the most interesting thing that I'm looking forward to is when they announce when schools are going back. Yep. But yeah, I would say the same. It's been an interesting time. We have, as an agency, we're very technically adept anyway. So we didn't have much trouble adapting to all working from home. Mm-hmm. And so the business has been running as smoothly as it was before lockdown, which is kind of very fortunate for us. I know it's been really hard for other businesses. Yeah. But I've taken up cycling because it sort of helps me to not feel like I'm incarcerated in some way. So I a 12-mile bike ride yesterday, which was good fun. I enjoyed that. But yeah, I have to say I am looking forward to getting back to normal, because I'm a very social person, and
Same.
it's hard. And you mentioned that you're drinking less. I wish I could say the same. But alcohol sales in the UK are up by 32%. I don't know
They
if you
are.
know that, but
Yep.
so, and when you walk into on the odd occasion that you go to the supermarket, the first thing they have when you go in used to be sweets and chocolates, and now it's rows and rows of wine.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm not alone in that respect.
What's your drink of choice? What do you usually go for?
Wine.
Wine. Good.
Yeah, I love wine. Yeah, that's my only vice.
I'll have to buy you a bottle when we eventually get to meet them.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
If people want to sort of find out more about the platform and the services you provide, what's the best way for them to sort of get in touch? What's the best thing for them to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So either go onto the website. You can request a sandbox just to have a play around with the platform in the top right hand corner. You can contact us through the contact us portal on the website as well, and somebody will be assigned to have a chat with you pretty quickly.
Okay.
Speak to yourself as well. You can always go through screen pages, or alternatively you can reach out to sales@checkout.com. Just mention that you've watched the webinar today. And that'll be pointed in the right direction for us to assign somebody to help out there.
Okay, brilliant.
All right.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can meet in person soon and have a glass of wine together.
Hope so.
All right.
Right, thank you, Sarah.
All right, thanks very much, Daniel.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.